of State and Fox News contributor. Great to see you this morning.
Great to be with you, Harris.
You have been all around the globe. You know how these things work. What's your take on where we are today? Some countries coming forward, China doubling down, and now the EU.
Yeah, I'm unsurprised by that division. Most of the countries want to come lower their barriers in response to what President Trump did, but the Chinese taking a very aggressive posture. That was my experience as Secretary of State as well. They are an adversary, and the Europeans are friends and partners, right? Very different situation. I'm hopeful that President Trump's mission set is to get these tariffs to go away, right? Mm-hmm. To get access for American farmers. I'm from Kansas, to get American farmers the ability to sell stuff into Asia and into Europe in ways that they have been prevented from doing. That would be a good purpose, a good objective for these tariffs. But I'm also not, when we talk about collecting more revenue, it's like I'm not a big government guy. Like, I like less revenue for our federal government. I want a smaller, more limited U.S. government than the one that we have today. And I know President Trump and his DOGE team do as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Let's dig in a little bit about China. And so President Trump goes to 104, China goes to 84. I actually was surprised they didn't match. And look, I'm not trying to be either pessimistic or optimistic. I just know them to be someone who, as you described, is almost an enemy. You were gracious with, they're not our friends, and they're adversaries. But they feel like an enemy. The COVID pandemic made me think they're enemies.
Amen. Look, I'm a little surprised, too. They're clearly testing. It does, as I think Secretary Bessent said earlier, it does impact their economy more than it impacts ours. They will feel this first and more. And so they're probably looking to see if they can't back President Trump down. But they are the ones that instigated this problem over the last 40 years. They've been at war with the American economy for 40 years, stealing our stuff, dumping product into America, hurting American manufacturing. And so it's unsurprising that now this tariff regime is going to end up pretty focused on the conflict between the Chinese Communist Party and free market, free trade believers all across the world.
What about the Chinese people?
They'll be net losers in this. I'm not sure that Xi Jinping gives a rip about his own people. He wants to stay in power for sure, but he's not worried about their livelihoods. He's just worried about what his stated objective is, which is to corrode the Chinese empire. And he's been hard at that, and I'm glad that President Trump is pushing back against it.
Yeah, I mean, again, look, it's not a shocker that they would do this, but there is a lot at stake for them, too. Formerly directing the CIA, you know a little bit about what they'll do to us in terms of intellectual property and all of that. Talk to me about where they can go.
So the Chinese Communist Party is very powerful. They have a very capable military. They have a capable space program. They've got a big nuclear weapons program.
We pray it would never come to that.
Yes, but we shouldn't forget that hard power is what backs up all these economic discussions as well. Mm-hmm. And so you saw it was last week when they encircled Taiwan in an exercise. They are demonstrating that they have other tools with which to impose risk and costs on the rest of the world. And they'll see if we blink first, Harris. That's what they're trying to do.
Wow. Okay. Well, so far, the president's not blinking. He might be winking at this point, but he's not blinking. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt called out the left's hypocrisy on trade policy. Watch this.
Democrats have long said that the United States of America has been ripped off by the countries around the world. They just don't want to admit it now because it's President Trump who is saying that. In June of 1996, Nancy Pelosi spoke on the House floor. She urged her colleagues at the time to fight against the status quo trade policies that had contributed to America's trade deficit with China. In 2007, Chuck Schumer spoke of our nation's crippling trade deficit, saying these are the kinds of records the American people don't want us to be breaking. Recently defeated Democrat Sherrod Brown said on deficits in 2012 that our deficit then at China had reached an all-time high, and it was on pace to recede. These are the words of Democrats years ago. It is about time America finally has a president who is taking action to restore those millions of jobs back to the United States of America.
All right, so what we're putting on the screen for you now is a breakdown of the trade imbalance with other countries. This gives you a taste of what President Trump has been looking at. So we'll continue to do that throughout our conversation with Secretary Pompeo. Look, Democrats, we know that they are not totally against what's happening because Biden kept some tariffs in place that Trump had previously.
Yes, Harris. I think, in fact, he kept nearly all of the tariffs on China that President Trump had put in place, as well as most of the steel tariffs, the metal tariffs that have been put in place as well. So, no, they're not against. This is politics for them. But this is too important to be about politics. This is about heartland jobs. I think about the fact, I ran a machine shop in Wichita, Kansas for years. We made stuff. We sold that product all across the world. Cessna built airplanes that they sold to Europe and to Asia and to the Middle East. We need to make sure that our markets are open for American manufacturers. And when we do that, there's nobody that can outcompete the United States.
What puts pressure on China when you know we're talking to Vietnam, and a bordering country with China, when you know we're talking to others in that part of the world? Look, they'll come to the table, get a deal. Does that complicate things for relationships with China? For those countries in China?
It definitely complicates for them. Those Asian countries have not only the United States as a major trading partner, but they've got deep trade relationships with the Chinese Communist Party as well. And so it does make things complicated for them. But they're going to have to, in the end, they're going to have to decide, do they want access to the most important intellectual property, the most important customers, the most important country in the world, or do they want to side with a communist regime that is almost certain to end up on the ash heap of history? I think they're going to pick the United States as their partner.
Having been to Vietnam not too long ago, not even a year ago, they are also a bordering communist nation, but they're different. They're also looking toward the relationships with the West, as you described.
Yeah, very much so.
It is great to see you.
Yeah, it's wonderful
Thanks
to be with you
for being
today.
here in person. College